Marc D'Antonio analyzes UFO photos and videos from MUFON. As an astronomer, Marc is knowledgeable about techniques used to detect potentially habitable planets in the search for extraterrestrial life. We'll talk with Marc about these topics, plus we'll discuss the history-making SpaceX mission, UFOs in Plymouth, and other space and UFO news right now on Spacing Out. Greetings everyone and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
I'm excited for today's show. We'll be talking with Marc D'Antonio, who serves as the photo and video analyst for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. We briefly touch on some of his work analyzing UFO photos and videos.
Marc also runs a company that creates models for movies, and he tells us about a movie he's currently working on that deals with exoplanets, and also a book he's currently writing that deals with techniques for finding potentially habitable planets.
We'll get to that soon, but now it's time for UFO news.
Residents in Plymouth, Massachusetts were stunned when they saw unidentified orange orbs in the night sky on Sunday, May 27th. One of the witnesses, journalism student Felisa Femino, recorded the UFOs on video and described them as traveling in a loose formation and in clusters over a period of about half an hour.
Femino, who described these objects as bright orange fireballs, reportedly called the Plymouth Municipal Airport that night to see if they might be able to help identify the lights. The airport confirmed that they received several calls about the lights, but they couldn't identify the aerial objects. The spokesperson at the airport even went so far as to say that the lights were the strangest thing he'd seen in the sky in many years.
The lights in the video have an appearance of Chinese lanterns, but according to Wicked Local Plymouth, Femino discounted this possibility because she feels the objects followed close to one another for such a long time, and air currents would have dispersed lanterns. But from personal experience, we know very well that Chinese lanterns can and do follow each other very closely.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is kind of assuming a lot, just throwing that out there that, well, Chinese lanterns couldn't do this and because of air currents. And I mean, we did a lot of assuming ourselves until we actually went out and launched Chinese lanterns for ourselves to see. And air currents at different altitudes are really strange. They behave much differently than the air currents at ground level where we are. And I mean, observing Chinese lanterns, they do and can follow very closely to each other and move through the sky and make quick motions based on when they hit a different altitude or a different air current.
Yeah, and you have to look at the fact that a lot of these times, once you see it personally, you realize that this can be the explanation in so many cases, and that they do behave strangely. But it's clearly the pattern that the lanterns take.
Right, and one thing I will say about this particular sighting that might make it not Chinese lanterns, so it's still it's certainly a possibility, and it's my opinion that's what it is. But based on witness testimony, they described the objects as being in the sky for a half hour.
That is a little long for they tend to burn out a lot quicker than that.
Right.
But
the ones that are the most available in the United States, will be airborne for maybe a few minutes.
Right.
And that's it. A half hour is really stretching it. Though there are homemade Chinese lanterns and alternate fuel sources
long
that
burning,
can be used, which are very dangerous and fire hazards. But from the video and based on the behavior of these lights, it seems like we're looking at Chinese lanterns in this video.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that's the case as well. The treasure hunting outfit known as Ocean Explorer or Ocean X Team discovered what appears to be a large dish-shaped object at the bottom of the Baltic Sea and between Sweden and Finland on June of 2011. Now, sonar detected the object approximately 300 feet below the sea's surface, and it's estimated to be nearly 200 feet in length.
The announcement of this find fueled speculation that this mysterious object could be a crashed UFO. And the media helped fuel that speculation by pointing out that the object's appearance resembles the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars.
Now, 1 year later, Ocean X Team has returned to the area to hopefully identify the mysterious object. But as Lee Spiegel of the Huffington Post points out, not everyone thinks there is a UFO sitting at the bottom of the sea. Benjamin Radford, deputy editor of Skeptical Inquirer magazine, told the Huffington Post that side scan sonar, the type of sonar used by Ocean X Team, can create false echoes. And the object that we're talking about is basically flush with the ocean floor, and side-scan sonar is much less reliable for things like that.
Redford also told the Huffington Post that he suspects conspiracy theories will ignite if the team is unable to locate the object this time around. And there's already added fuel for those conspiracy theories should the object no longer be detected. According to Swedish news site Aftonbladet, the team already is worried that someone may have beaten them to the object. Team member Dennis Asberg reportedly stated recently that Russians and Americans were conducting military exercises in the area.
Regardless, the team, reportedly backed by a secret sponsor, set out to rediscover the object and hopefully determine its identity. According to the team's website, the expedition started Friday, June 1st, when Ocean X team took their crew out for this exciting adventure trying to find out what this mysterious dish-shaped object is. Unfortunately, the weather conditions have been so bad that they were kind of delayed, but now supposedly they're on a roll.
NDT television reports that the team will use equipment to conduct three-dimensional seafloor mapping and seafloor penetrating equipment. Team member Peter Lindbergh explains, "We have divers, we have robots, sophisticated sonar, we will take bottom samples, we will measure for radiation, and we will also bring tests with us so we can leave it at a lab." The latest expedition is scheduled to last between 6 and 10 days.
I mean, I've been paying attention sort of to the story for the last year, and I'm really excited. I know that it's probably going to be nothing in all reality, but I think that it's been kind of fun, and now there's lately this new fuel to the fire with the fact that military exercises were going on at this time.
And lots of little elements that keep creeping up with this story, and it's almost like, you know, some people have said this whole thing should be a reality show, and it sort of is.
I think they were supposed to be doing one.
And there's so much media attention on this, and there are all these twists and turns that keep happening. So it basically is a reality show.
And at the same time, you got to look at the fact that this was supposedly not some spur-of-the-moment military training, which is what people are trying to make it sound like, that this is an annual occurrence that usually happens around the same time of the year. So whether the team knew that and just put a little more fuel to the media fire, or whether they just had a really poorly timed mission is yet to be determined.
Right. Well, they should hopefully have new results or no results to report in the coming weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what they turn up.
Yeah,
if anything.
Shoot, it'd be great if there was a Millennium Falcon.
That'd be awesome.
In space news, the SpaceX Dragon capsule successfully detached from the International Space Station and returned safely to Earth on the morning of Thursday, May 31st, and it splashed down into the Pacific Ocean.
The successful completion of this mission was a major milestone for the commercial space industry and will open the doors to an exciting era of private space exploration. We talked specifically about this with Jason Major last week on the show, and we've talked about it a lot lately, but this is huge. It's going to allow a lot of companies to move forward. I think everyone's eyes were on SpaceX just to see if they could pull this off, and they did.
I wonder how many projects are just going to immediately launch out the door now, pretty much.
I think many will, and Virgin Galactic, which is poised to be the first airline in space, they're moving forward. The FAA just granted them another type of license they need to move to the next stage of testing with their flights. So I think we're going to see a lot of companies moving to their next steps because so many have projects on the table and they've just been waiting. I'm
still excited for the gas stations in space. That we have a little time for that from Planetary Resources. Some of the planets circling Gliese 581 are thought to be potential homes for extraterrestrial life. But according to new data, if intelligent life does exist in Gliese 581's system, it isn't broadcasting radio signals.
Western Australian researchers from Curtin University released results from their targeted SETI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, research, which used the Very Long Baseline Interferometry, the VLBI instrument, to listen for possible extraterrestrial signals coming from Gliese 581. In this case, the VLBI used the combined power of the Parkes Radio Telescope, the MOPRA array, and the Australian Telescope Compact Array to listen for alien signals.
Now, researchers analyzed 20 hours of data collected in 2007, and this resulted in the detection of 200 signals. Unfortunately, all 200 signals have been attributed to Earth communication satellites. According to the Register, however, researchers believe their techniques demonstrate the suitability of VLBI for targeted SETI work, providing a model for how data collected by the South African Australian Square Kilometre Array could be filtered for lifelike signals. The team's findings will be published in the Astronomical Journal.
Another example of SETI, there's a lot of this and listening for signals and pulling in data. And I really don't know how they do it, but they detect so many signals and are able to, in this case, just 20 hours of stuff, coming up with, 200 signals or something, and being able to dismiss them as things from Earth or satellites from Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but they know exactly what they're looking for. And sometimes they will have results that come back and they'll say, well, this is what an extraterrestrial signal would look like, but it's a satellite. And that's kind of confusing to me. But they know what they're doing. And it was interesting that they were targeting the Gliese 581 system. And there's a lot of speculation that those planets could be habitable. And just to point out, just because there aren't or haven't been radio signals detected coming from those planets yet doesn't mean there isn't extraterrestrial life there.
And who knows, what types of signals will be sent from other life forms, if any at all, it's hard to say on those.
And just assuming that people have technology like we do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
A new tool could aid planet hunters in the search for Earth-like alien planets. Scientists published a study in the May 31st edition of the journal Nature, in which they detailed results from testing their laser frequency comb, a calibration tool for large ground-based planet hunting telescopes. Some of these telescopes locate planets by observing the gravitational effect, or wobble, these potential planets have on their parent stars. Current tools are reportedly limited in their function and lack precision. For example, the European Southern Observatory's high-accuracy radial velocity planet searcher, or HARPS, spectrograph on a telescope at the La Silla Observatory in Chile searches for planets using this wobble method.
But according to Space.com, precision is key, and the holocathode lamps used to calibrate those spectrometers have their limitations. They are not adjustable, can be difficult to gauge, and allow spectrometers to track the wobble of a star only down to about 30 centimeters per second. And as study co-author Gaspar Locurto of the European Southern Observatory explains, the detection of Earth-sized planets requires that precision multiplied by 10.
Wow. Locurto and his colleagues tested this laser frequency comb on the HARPS. The researchers claim this tool provides the required accuracy enhancements, but Space.com explains that the laser frequency comb works by emitting many lines of light spread apart like teeth of a comb. And because the distance between these teeth is known, it's possible to more accurately gauge that wobble.
Although the laser comb is capable of detecting planets with masses similar to Earth, the limitations of the telescopes themselves currently prevent this. Researchers say that HARPS, even with a laser comb, would not be capable of detecting planets less massive than Neptune-sized planets in the habitable zone around the Sun-like stars. For reference, Neptune's mass is 17 times that of Earth. But optimistic researchers contend that larger telescopes currently being constructed, when fit with a laser comb, will be able to detect Earth-mass planet in the habitable zone of the Sun-like star.
Laser combs, that's so sci-fi.
I know, it really is.
The greatly hyped extraterrestrial-themed movie Prometheus hits theaters today, Friday, June 8th. But Maureen attended an advanced press screening of the movie last week. So without spoiling any major plot secrets, here's Maureen's review of Prometheus.
So the much anticipated release of Ridley Scott's prequel to Alien is finally here. The film basically leads us on a mission aboard the Prometheus with a team of explorers who, after finding clues to possible origin of life, search out to find answers. But the mission quickly turns into a battle to save the future of human life on Earth. Now, visually, the film is pretty stunning, despite the majority of it being taking place in a dark cavern-like structure on a distant moon. And the plot touches a lot on the grand questions of theology and creationism, which are complex questions, obviously. A clear star in the film, I'm going to say, was Michael Fassbender, who played a cyborg named David. Fassbender's portrayal was so eerie that he left me wondering about the motives of every action he took, whether it was with other crew members, the aliens, extraterrestrials, or just his own personal battles inside. The rest of the characters were really annoying. You could pretty much predict the sequence of who was going to be picked off at any given moment by their level of annoyingness. Was I scared at any point? Nope. Will you be? Probably not. But all in all, I enjoyed the film on its own. Die-hard fans of Alien might not find it's all they were hoping it could be, though. I still recommend seeing it because it poses some interesting questions, but don't expect to leave with any answers. I am left with more questions than I entered there with. But I predict that means there's going to be a second installment of this prequel on the horizon.
Now let's talk with our guest today, Mr. Marc D'Antonio.
Well, we are talking with Marc D'Antonio today. Marc, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. Well, Marc, you are MUFON's photo and video analyst, which is a very cool position, I think. It sounds cool. You do some important work for them, I think. And how did you get involved with MUFON? I know initially you were a field investigator, right?
I was, no disrespect to Walt Anderson. I love Walt. He's great. But I was in MUFON when Walt had dark hair.
Wow.
Right after it formed, I became a member. And I think I was probably in high school. No, I wasn't. What am I saying? I was actually I was really young. and so what happened was Walt, I wrote him a letter because that's what you did, and I got my little field investigator card from Walt after completing the question and answer thing that it was at the time, and then moved from there. Now my background is astronomy. That's my degree. So I went to school for stars and planets in the universe and the morphology of life in the universe and all that. So I spent a lot of time looking up. I spent a lot of time taking photos of the night sky. So over time, I probably took every bad photo anyone could ever take of the night sky. I've taken it. Okay? Because I was an okay photographer, but you make mistakes when you're doing new things, and taking pictures of the sky that's always moving with a high magnification telescope always leads to all kinds of strange results. But that's I started analyzing my own photos, and then in 2008, Jim Carrion asked me to look at a couple of things and to present out in San Jose. And I did that, and one thing led to another, and they saw, hey, gee, this guy's taken 30 or 40,000 photos. He kind of has an idea what they are, what they look like. He's had a lot of experience with photos, and no one else wanted to do it, I guess. But it's actually very rewarding because I get to see a lot of the events firsthand before they really get out there, and I get to look at them, which is great.
Well, I think that's something that more people need to do. I think a lot of people like to, be quick to criticize or jump to conclusions when they see a photo or when they hear an explanation or a possible explanation for a photo. And, until you actually go out and take pictures of things in the night sky or the day sky with a variety of cameras, you don't really see this. Just a couple weeks ago, I set up a camera because I knew the ISS was passing over. And that's always cool to see in the sky, but I wanted to see how it looked in a camera, and not a very good camera. And, it looks crazy. It looks like a pulsing, changing color type thing because the camera's trying to focus on it.
That's right. And, it's very interesting because, when you start taking pictures of the night sky, you start to open up a whole new world. And, a lot of people call me a debunker. Now, on one hand, that's a compliment to me because I'll be honest with you, I am extremely hard on the data. And the reason I'm hard on the data is because I can be hard on the data. I don't have an ego to bruise. I don't care who gets angry with me if I don't say what they want to hear. But we're not going to get to the bottom of this phenomenon if we sit there and just pat each other on the back and say, hey, that was a great photo you took of that UFO, when in fact it was just illuminated dust caused by taking a flash photo at night. Things like that. And I'm not going to, whatever falls out of the bottom of that funnel of analysis, when it lands in our hands, it should be indisputable. If it comes out and says it's unexplained, there shouldn't be a scientist on planet Earth who can look at that data and say that's an unreasonable conclusion. At the very least, we want them to say, good job, that's reasonable, although not provable. And that's fine with us. So we're very hard on the data, and something? I believe fully that we're being visited. I actually had an experience that I've talked about in the past where, I ended up having to have sinus surgery to remove something lodged up here. And that was no pleasant experience for me or my family. They actually had to go through it too. So that was I believe in that, but I don't think that everything that flies overhead is a UFO, and I want to make sure that we're really hard on the data, because that's the only way we're going to flesh out what's real and what is, I don't know how to say it, what is not is
Right.
the best way to put it.
And Mark, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you because of the position you take, and it's unfortunate that more researchers don't take that same position. I mean, I think a lot of people fall into the position of thinking that, our role is to tell people what they want to hear, and that doesn't help anybody. I mean, I would
No.
like to think that we all want to find out the truth about things and not invent things as we go. And I think a lot of people forget that it should be approached as science, and we have to do that to look at things scientifically, look at the data, and find out what we're really looking at rather than jumping to conclusions and making guesses. That doesn't help anybody.
No, as a matter of fact, I refuse to provide a disservice to the ufology community as a whole. Whether it's MUFON, whether it's International UFO Congress people, whether it's Open Minds, I don't care who it is. I am not going to provide a disservice, because I think that every conclusion I've come to, I stood by. Do you remember the Norway spiral? That beautiful spiral? I received that footage probably within an hour after it was taken. And I looked at it, and you know what? I looked at it and I said, wow, I know exactly what this is, because I've seen it before.
Right.
It's a gimbal failure on a rocket launch, and it was 8 in the morning in Norway or whatever, and the sun was still bright and shiny. The sun was up for sure, up in space 100 miles up. So the leaking fuel was causing this beautiful, it was actually a corkscrew when seen from the side, but from the front it looked like a flat pinwheel, because people don't understand the perspective. From the front it looked like this, but really it was like this. And it was a trail going this way. And it was a gimbal failure on the rocket nozzle. And I called it that. And when that black cloud enveloped it and people said it's a Stargate opening up, I said, no, that's what detonations look like in space when they self-destruct. There's no fireballs in space. And I tried to explain it scientifically. And of course, I came under tremendous fire for that. And 2 days later, the Russians owned up to it. And I didn't hear anything. I heard crickets chirping, through my headphones. It's like, well, wait a minute. I don't hear anybody calling me saying, hey, guess what? That was right. But I don't live for that. I don't care. As long as the truth gets out there, that's all that matters to me.
Well,
one way or the other.
If it counts for anything, Mark, I think you were right.
The Russians agreed.
Took me a little while to send that to you, but yeah.
Yeah, the Russians agreed.
Well, your work has allowed you to serve as an expert on television shows, and one recently you were on the Science Channel's special NASA's Unexplained Files, and some of the space photos and space footage, anomalous things that we see in those are fascinating, and I thought you did it was remarkable watching you, offer some pretty logical explanations for some of these things.
Well, what was interesting, Jason, is that, when I saw the NASA tether incident, for instance, having a lot of camera experience and, of course, a degree in astronomy, I mean, I know some astronauts. I've talked with them, had dinner with astronauts. I understand what on-orbit activities are like in space. I understand. I wish I could be there to experience it, but in a microgravity environment, things don't happen the way they do on Earth. Particles don't act the way they do flying through the air. Things happen that look strange. Particles can make 90-degree turns, especially if they're pieces of ice outside the spacecraft, because of they have trapped air in them, and when that trapped air is exposed to space, you get a sudden little jet, and the thing shoots off in another direction. They look really odd. I'm not saying everything out there is ice, but in the tether incident, there were several things going on that we had to show. And what I did was I'm here in Connecticut, and what I did was I went out to Dallas, and there's a studio out there. We recreated the tether incident right there in the studio. And I said, if this doesn't work, I'll take back everything I said, and I'll say, all right, then I'll have to agree it was probably a UFO incident that is unexplained. However, it worked. It showed that particles in the foreground looked like they were going behind something far away in the background. And it all had to do with how CCD cameras work. When you saturate a CCD, the detector that picks up the light in the camera, it turns bright white and nothing can get brighter than that. So anything going by it is going to either look like it blends in with it or goes behind it if it's dimmer. That's just the way those cameras work, and that's what happened on that incident. That's what we were showing in that particular live setup.
Right. And lately, there's been a big sort of news exposure to the glitches with the solar UFOs. I know you've probably heard of that when the NRL came out and said, no, it's just a camera glitch. But the UFO community is sticking to their guns and saying, no, these were refueling spaceships.
Yeah, you're talking about the SOHO and other observatory. Yeah. What people don't understand is space is a very dangerous place for human beings. And when we send a probe out there, the probe is getting hit with many kinds of radiation that we would not survive in. And what happened with SOHO is it has a very sensitive detector, and it picks up cosmic rays that come blasting through the detector. They show up as bright spots. As a matter of fact, they show up as long tracks, and as they hit at an oblique angle to the detector, as they slow down, they actually start to spread, and they form these little delta wing shapes as they spread out to the detector sensors. And so what we're seeing is cosmic ray strikes. And everybody who looks at it, or even gamma ray strikes, everybody that looks at it says, oh yeah, cosmic ray, gamma ray. And they just go past it. Now, should it ever be a real refueling winged eagle-shaped spacecraft, we're going to miss it. I can guarantee it, because we're going to just assume it's a cosmic ray or a gamma ray. But you have to look at the nature of the detector, the nature of the mission, the types of things that happen to those craft, the types of expected things that can happen to those craft. And that is your guiding principle. So when you see stuff like that, you have to say, well, I know what they're showing. I know in the time lapse you see, oh look, this solar flare illuminates this thing near Mercury, and people say, oh, it's a ship hiding by Mercury. But in fact, when you look at it closer, you see, no, it's not at all. Actually, it's just another element of this type of radiation I was telling you about. And people that believe wholeheartedly are going to say, yeah, you're full of what. I don't believe you. Okay, but I'm on record as saying it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still completely astounded that we can even get images from space. I mean, that blows my mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you consider that the lunar rovers that are on Mars, Spirit and Opportunity, they were meant to do a 90-day mission.
Right.
And then they landed in 2004, and Opportunity is still rolling. Mm-hmm. So you do the math. I mean, it's been, our engineering is quite good. Gentry Lee, who's at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, that's his bailiwick. That's his arena. That's where he lives. And so he has generated a lot of robotic probes from his engineering labs out there that have sent tremendous imagery back. We've learned a whole lot about Mars and other moons and planets in our solar system. So much so that we now think that there's life, very potentially, on several moons of other planets in our own solar system.
Right. It's been a very exciting couple of years, especially with data coming back from Kepler. And NASA has so many missions underway, as does the ESA and other organizations. And now we've got SpaceX, this whole new era of space exploration happening, and it's really exciting. But something exciting to me is I only a week ago found out about your background in astronomy, and I'm excited to talk to you about this more, about the search for extraterrestrial life.
Oh yeah, if you look at the Kepler results, Kepler is set up out there looking at around 100,000 stars, and they're all in the area of Cygnus the Swan in the summer sky. When in August, Cygnus is directly overhead, and that's where Kepler's looking. And so far to date, it's found almost 800 planets around other stars. Now, of those, approximately 68 of them are Earth-like. Now, that should be shocking, considering that we're only looking out a few hundred light years around the sun. Now, if you extrapolate that the sun is a relatively ordinary star, right, there's many more like the sun than there are like any other kind, okay? Sort of. I mean, there's one that's slightly cooler. They're called M-class dwarfs. They're like the sun, but a little cooler, redder. And those stars have plenty of planets. We found tons of planets that way. Of those 68 that are Earth-like, any one of those might have microbial life on it if there's water. And the element of the book that we were talking about earlier is that we trace the origins of life on Earth and in the solar system potentially, and how we can extrapolate that to look at life around other stars with other planets. And extrapolating the 68 Earth-like that we found to the whole galaxy. And we used to say, well, we'd have to estimate about 1 billion habitable planets in our galaxy. 1 billion. Now, with the latest findings, that number is going up, not down. So it may be closer to 2 billion. And if that's the case, all the many people that adhered to the original Drake equation, which calculated that there could only be one and only one populated planet in the whole universe, based on all these special circumstances that had to come together in just the right way. If you look at that, you now have to look at the fact that with all the new knowledge we have, we see that with several billion planets just in our galaxy and a thumbnail-sized piece of space that the Hubble Space Telescope was looking at showed 1 million additional galaxies. Now you realize that statistically, all those many things that went in a row to make us who we are today could have happened elsewhere with, by statistical analysis. It's almost a certainty. So that's pretty impressive to me.
Well, you've teased me with this book you're working on. What is your working title, and do you have a ballpark for when we might be able to read this book?
I'm hoping it'll be ready by the symposium. I'm working on it now. I'm doing all the illustrations myself, because one of the things that we do here as well, because my background is, besides the astronomy, is I've become a model maker. I build a lot of high quality physical models and digital models. So I do a lot of animations. I do a lot of illustration for different companies each month. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm using that illustration background in Cinema 4D and Maya to create my 3D illustrations for the book. But the working title is The Populated Universe. And, it's a scientific foray into the knowledge to date of Kepler data and other scientific data, while tracing the roots of life on Earth and in our solar system, how life arises, going all the way back to 4 billion years ago, and tracing how the first microbes came about and so forth, and moving forward in time. We also look at other planets and see, could it have happened there? And one of the things, as you see in the book, is that water, of course, is critical. And there are a lot of organisms that have become very good at living in extreme environments. And those extremophiles are the kinds of life we can expect to arise in some of the harsher places, like under the ices of Mars, or deep in the 100-mile deep ocean of Europa around Jupiter, or in the geyser plumes of Enceladus, Saturn. So there's a tremendous number of ways that life can find a way. And the book traces how life finds a way. And we extrapolate to the planets, and it's actually it's pretty interesting. Obviously, to me, or I wouldn't be writing it, but it's interesting because it's something that is needed out there. I think people need to see. It's written in terms that anyone can understand, because I'm not that smart. But it's written in terms that people will understand, because I think that this way people can be educated about what's going on out there, and I have a little background to help with that.
I can't wait to read it.
You'll enjoy it.
And your company, your model company, FX Models, also makes models for movies, right?
That's correct. We're currently working with an Oscar-winning visual effects producer, and in fact, I'm in the background here. I'm growing on a prototype or pieces for a spacecraft, and it's very interesting stuff. And we can't talk too much about the movie right now, but what we can say is there's actually 4 or 5 in the pipeline, 4 or 5 features. But this one is about humankind's place in the universe. It takes place 200 years in the future, and you're out there in the universe, and we've left Earth behind, and that's a little bit of a tease, but there's some There's some very big people backing it, and they're very pleased with the story. And there's a lot of energy in this movie, I can tell you that.
Well, you're
And
full of teasers, Mark. I'm excited. Movie, book,
I, you
this
know,
is pretty exciting.
I can't explain more about that, and I apologize. You know, that's something that
Totally
I have
understand.
to leave. I have to leave to the producer.
Right.
You know, because he's a very down to earth guy, but he's also, you know, he has to keep things under his hat.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we'll get another little tease because Mark will be speaking at the International UFO Congress in February.
That's
for
right.
everyone to put that on their list to come check him out.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. We're gonna talk about a lot of the different image processing and video analysis things. We're also going to talk about some of the different shows that I worked on. Not to do this patting me on the back stuff. I don't do that, but only because it's illustrative of some of the concepts that I think people need to see, because it'll help them understand better what they're seeing in the night sky.
Well, we're excited for your presentation at the International UFO Congress. And Mark, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
We'll talk
Take
soon.
care.
On this show, we like to highlight upcoming events we think you'll be interested in, like these. June 22nd through the 24th, the SETI Institute presents SETICon 2. The event features an impressive lineup of speakers, including diverse and distinguished scientists, astronomers, astronauts, artists, authors, and actors who have made an impact in the world of real and imagined science. Find out more at SETICon.com. The 2012 MUFON Symposium will take place the weekend of August 3rd through the 5th at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Covington, Kentucky. This year they pose the question, UFOs, friend or foe? Do we know what they are? And if they are not from here, then where are they from and why are they here? You can find the speaker list and find out more at 2012symposium.mufon.com. Now, the 22nd Annual International UFO Congress will take place February 26th through March 3rd at the Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in Fountain Hills, Arizona. With over 20 speakers, vendors, a film festival, and more, this event is one not to miss. Super early bird registration is open now through September 1st. Register and find out more at ufocongress.com.
That's all for this week. Be sure to visit openminds.tv for all the latest news. And join us again next week when we'll talk with spaceflight consultant, research scientist, and star of the new Nat Geo show, Chasing UFOs, Ben McGee.
And remember, we welcome your participation in the show. If you have your own UFO photo or sighting story you'd like to share, send it to us at contact@openminds.tv.
We'd also love to see your videos. If you recorded a UFO on video, we would love to see that, of course. But we also encourage you to record videos of yourselves, either sharing your UFO sighting experience, asking us questions, or commenting on anything related to the show, space, UFOs, or extraterrestrial life. Once you've recorded your video, upload it to your favorite video sharing site like YouTube and send us the link. We just might include it in a future episode.
Thanks for watching. I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. We will see you in the future.